The following thoughts and opinions regarding this album are strictly of my own personal interests. I am not a professional music reviewer. I do encourage respectful discussion and friendly banter of each episode, but I do not condone and will not tolerate bullying or belligerence of any kind. Well, hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rate the Record podcast, episode 123. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm your host, Chris. As always, here in my studio, listening to music, doing album reviews, hanging out with you so we can both talk about the same album. That part's pretty fun. Thank you very much for being a part of that today. And just before we move any further forward, I do want to say that if you like what you see and or hear today, there's one thing, a bunch of things, or all the things I'm about to list that are quick, free, and easy to do to help show your support for the channel. That is like, subscribe, rate, share, comment, and follow. 6 things right there. Again, super easy, super fast, and it would mean the world to me if you did that. You can wait till the end if you want. You can do it now. You can do it later. It doesn't really matter. Just, again, any sort of support really help, really appreciate it. Thank you very much if you decided to do just that. And you can find all the places to do those things over at ratetherecord.ca. That is ratetherecord.ca. Streaming links, social media links, merchandise, and of course the RTR Club. If you like the channel enough that you want to financially support it, it's optional, but the option's indeed yours. $3 a month will get you early access to episodes. You can request an album for me to do here on the show. You'll get a shout out on social media and here on the show. If you got a band, I will do one of your songs. Like, I will actually review one of your songs for you and everything like that. That sounds pretty cool. And just quick and easy discourse with me, all found in the RTR Club at ratetherecord.ca. Boom, gotta nail that part out of the way. It's fine, it's good. I've been doing this for a while. I'm pretty used to it now. If you've been here before, you know that I gotta get this out of the way. So hello, welcome back. Thank you for joining me again. Glad to see that you're going to be here doing another album with me. But if you're new here, welcome to the show. I hope you enjoy your stay, have fun, have your voice heard, have fun listening to music, talking about it. That's what it's all about here. But if you want to know more about what I do on the show, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory through the title, but I will give you a little more information anyways. Each week I do choose an album, be it of my own choice. Maybe it's requested, maybe it's celebrating an anniversary, some sort of milestone, maybe it's a special occasion of sorts. Doesn't really matter. One will be chosen. I will listen to the entire album from front to back right here on the show. Obviously, you'll only see it in a few second increments because I don't want to get my ass kicked by copyright, but I digress. I will listen to the whole thing. I'll give you my opinions on the songs, the entire album, and then, of course, the bread and butter of this whole thing, rank the songs and then rate the record. Yeah. It's becoming muscle memory just to do that by now, so good that I can hold on to that, and especially because it's the penultimate episode, the second last episode of season 6. So I just got to make sure I have all my bearings in order here, and hopefully I can continue it on to the next season. We will see. But for now, we do have to talk about episode 123, that being Beck's Mellow Gold from 1994. I'm pretty sure this was an album I wanted to do back in like season 4 or something like that. It was quite a while ago that I wanted to do this one. Just kept pushing. It's the story with a lot of the albums I'm doing in season 5. So finally I get to do this one. I haven't fully listened to this thing since I was in my early 20s. I'm 35 right now, by the way. So like late 2000s, early 2010s is the last time I fully listened to this. And I used to love it. Times have changed. How do I feel about this album? Well, I definitely want to get into that with you. But first, let me tell you a little more about it. Mellow Gold is the third full-length studio album by alternative and experimental rock musician Beck David Campbell, better known simply as Beck. It was released March 1st, 1994 through the now-defunct label DGC Records, who also distributed for bands such as Blink-182, Coldplay, Jimmy Eat World, just to name a few. The album was produced by Beck, Tom Rothrock, known for work with Foo Fighters, and James Blunt among many others, Rob Schnapf, known for his work with Elliott Smith, Tokyo Police Club, and more, and Carl Stevenson of the band Forest for the Trees. Beck performed virtually every position on this album by himself, with occasional additional performances from Mike Boito, Carl Stevenson, David Hart, and more. The album received a lot of positive attention upon its release. Even with its anti-commercial presentation, the album managed to find commercial success. AllMusic and the Rolling Stone Album Guide gave the album 5 out of 5 stars. Spin Alternative Record Guide gave it a 10 out of 10, and Village Voice gave it an A. The album charted in 10 countries, with only 3 peaking in the top 20, such as number 18 in Norway, number 15 in Sweden, and number 13 in the US. The album was certified gold in the UK and platinum in the US and Canada. The album spawned 3 singles: Loser, his most well-known song to date, which hit number 1 in the US and Norway; Pay No Mind, parentheses, Snoozer, and Beer Can. There you go, a little bit more that you know now about Beck's Mellow Gold. Maybe you know some of the songs on this album. Maybe you know the song Loser, just like everybody does. If you've heard alternative radio in the last 30 years, chances are you know exactly what this song is. And we'll get into that because it's the first song on the album. We got the whole thing ahead of us. Now, here on Spotify, I want to point out something to people who are watching this on the video version. There are 13 tracks listed. Number 13 is blacked out. I can't listen to it. Analog Odyssey is number 13, and it turns out it's just a hidden track after Black Hole anyways. So I'm not going to be including it in my review since it's just a hidden track and doesn't really need to have its own space, so it's not a separate song. Don't have to go listening to it anywhere else, it's fine. So it's only going to be 1 through 12. Black Hole will be the final song. But that's song number 12. We have to start with song number 1, and of course, it's the big one. It's Loser. Gets really heavy in that fade out right there. Very strange that they waited that long to bring in a heavy moment, but it doesn't really matter. Song number 1, Loser. Of course you know what this song is. Of course everyone does. It's been everywhere for like the last 30 years at this point. So I don't really have to say too much about it because you know what to expect out of the song, but I mean, obviously it's just a super catchy track. It's got a cool drum groove going through it. It's simple but fun instrumentals, and I'm not even going to try to make heads or tails of the lyrics in this thing because I've read everything and everything else in between with people interpreting the lyrics of this song. Some people think that it's like there's multiple layers of meaning written in a very comedic and complex way, but then other people are just saying that it's like a stream of consciousness, like nonsense meant to rhyme type of deal, you know? So it doesn't really matter. Either way, it's funny stuff. It works. It's a very strange and interesting song. Amazing that this caught on it like it did in the mainstream, but yeah, it's Loser. It's a fun song. Of course everyone likes it. Why wouldn't you? It's a good, catchy track. With that said, we can move on to some of the other ones you're probably not aware of unless you're a Beck fan, obviously. Song number 2, I don't need to scroll down on this. Song number 2, Pay No Mind. Pay No Mind to me is scrolling down, apparently.
Rock and roll singer, as he's dancing upon drugs won't kill your day job.
As it fades away, song number 2, Pay No Mind, parentheses, Snoozer. This was a strangely kind of folk number. It's obviously got like an alternative side to it as well, but it has a very much folk tinge to it. It's very simple and minimal in its production and presentation, so there's not a whole lot to take away from it. It is accessible enough, though. It's pretty much easy for anyone to listen to, although some might find it a little strange. But yeah, there's not a lot going on with this one, so it's not entirely memorable, which is super interesting considering this was a single. Obviously, not like a chart-topping single like Loser was, but I mean, like, still, this one was a single, which I find particularly interesting considering some of the songs coming up on the album. Apparently, the song was written when he was like 18 years old. It's like one of the earliest writings that he had, and it was just about like his negative view on the music industry. But again, it's really hard to make like heads or tails on his particular writing style, and sometimes like messages and meanings can go right over your head just because of his very outlandish way of writing, let's say that much. So if I'm off on this meaning, or if I try to bring up any other meaning and I'm off on that too, I'm just going by what I can find online. I don't know, I tried, but what can he do? He's a very strange poet, we'll say that much. You might even say that he's fucking with my head. Song number 3, Fucking With My Head. Parentheses, Mountain Dew Rock. And we fade out there with song number 3, Fucking With My Head, parentheses, Mountain Dew Rock. I think one of the better standouts of this track is probably definitely the drums and percussion all over this thing. I just like the chunky feeling that it gives the song, and it definitely kind of helps fill out that soundscape a little more, considering that the song is mostly like bass and drum driven pretty much all the way through. Obviously there's like different layers that kind of just like add different flavors and textures and everything like that, but the drums and the bass really do a lot for this number, I think, in my opinion, at the very least. This one generally is like, I don't know, fun enough feeling, but my problem is the bridge, and it doesn't really fit in at all. I don't know why that bridge was done the way it is. It was super poorly executed. It feels so out of place, and it's not even like in a fun experimental kind of way. And considering that there's experimentation all over this album where it works way better in some places, this part just feels lazy. Like this, they didn't know what to do, so they just kind of threw in this random little thing, and just, it didn't sound all that great. Other than that, the song's not that bad, but just the bridge sucks. I mean, I'll be straightforward about it. So, I don't know. Mixed feelings about it. I'm going to say more positive than negative, but still. At least the bridge was brief. I'll leave it at that. So, let's move on to song number 4, Whiskey Clone Hotel City 1997.
One more time. Out on my sleeve.
All right, we're fading out, so I'll cut it off there. Song number 4, Whiskey Clone Hotel City 1997. What a year that he wrote about, considering this album came out in 94. He looked into the future, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, that's what the song is. This one's like a super raw, like off the floor style of recording too. And I believe I was reading that the majority of this album was done on a 4-track recorder in somebody's house, which I definitely get. And listen, I'm not going to knock that as a production quality or anything like that. Like, listen, I like a lot of raw off the floor style of recordings. I mean, I love a lot of Elliott Smith's older work too. And you can definitely tell those ones were done on like old 4-track, 8-track recorders. So, I mean, like, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. But this song, though, aside from production, it's just a very low energy sleeper about feeling trapped. I think that's what the lyrics are trying to say anyways. Unfortunately, this one just wasn't doing too much for me. There was nothing to really grab onto, and like, I don't know. It's so easy to just drift on by this one. Just, it feels so lifeless, and I know these kinds of songs don't necessarily need those big booming moments to catch you, but there's also something in these songs that usually still can kind of captivate you a little bit. But unfortunately, this one just didn't have it for me. I don't know. The slide guitar was a nice touch, though. I will say that it fits in well, doesn't overpower the sound at all. It was coming out pretty heavy in my right earphone here, but it still wasn't even that overpowering. So it was just a little nice touch and texture to throw in all around. So there you go. There's a little bit of positive for that one. Let's move on to song number 5, Soul Suckin' Jerk.
I got a job making money for the man throwing shit. I ain't gonna work for no soul sucker jerk. I'm falling into my face, telling me to get busy.
All right, it's fading out. Song number 5, Soul Suckin' Jerk. This one's fun because it just feels like it goes off to like a lot of different directions all the way through. Like, it doesn't stick to one style for its own song. Like, I mean, it's in the style of what he's doing, but I just mean like it starts off pretty like chill in the first verse. It gets pretty aggressive and heavy. There's some like near psychedelic experiences going on, a lot of synth work towards the end. Like, it just goes off in several different directions, but yet it all fits in as a whole in the end. So I think I really enjoy that about this. It's just some lighthearted aggression in the lyrics and the instrumentals and everything, and I really actually like how crunchy the sound is. I know it could be off-putting for some people, but I don't know. This one just, I felt like it needed it, especially because you can sense a little aggression in it, so nothing wrong with being a little bit messy and crunchy. It's all good. But yeah, those effects got really heavy towards the end. The style just kept changing up and everything like that, so I thought that was fun. I thought it's neat. I like this song. It's decent enough. Pretty cool. So now, that means we can move on to song number 6, Truck Driving Neighbors Downstairs, parentheses, Yellow Sweat.
Come on, motherfucker! Put your clothes on! Come on!
Neighbors downstairs, shaking his feet, taking truck, driving down double-edged axe, growing hair like...
Alrighty then, song number 6, Truck Driving Neighbors Downstairs. That opening bit too with the people yelling at each other, I did read that apparently that was an actual recording done with, I believe, the 4-track recorder of his neighbors actually arguing. And so like these are based on real people apparently. And although likely not to this extent, I feel like many of us have had those like absolutely like unbearably obnoxious neighbors. So at the very least, there's a very relatable subject in this song. Because I mean, like I used to live like in an apartment with a friend and everything like that. And the ones upstairs, I know neighbors upstairs in an apartment are the best thing to complain about because everyone has those stories. But it always sounded like they were like rolling marbles across the floor and shit like that. And it was annoying. So again, not to the extent of this song and what it's presenting, but still, we can all relate in some way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, there's not much more to talk about in this one. It's pretty short. It's just under 3 minutes. I mean, Beck's using vocal processing in this one because like his voice is like way lower in this, although his higher voice and like falsetto do kick in randomly once in a while. It's just another one of those raw, like done off the floor, one take type of deals on a 4-track recorder. That's what we're getting out of this one. It's extremely minimal. There's not a lot of replayability in this song either. It's not one that you've, like if you even loved this album, this is likely not one of the first top 5, top 6 songs you're going to go back to and listen to. Just like, oh, I got to listen to this one again. I got to listen to this one again. It's just like, there's not really any replayability in this one, so it's hard for me to really care about it altogether, unfortunately. Just not doing it for me. Well, hopefully the next song will, as we move on to song number 7, Sweet Sunshine. Fade away into the messy oblivion right there. Song number 7, Sweet Sunshine. I've always been very fascinated by this song. As I said earlier, I've been listening to this album since my early 20s, like late 2000s, early 2010s, somewhere around that era. And I was working like in a food processing plant at the time. I don't want to name which one, but I would have this on in my earbuds, and I that's when I first listened to this album, and like this is one of the songs that really caught me onto this album at the time. But yeah, it's just like so sludgy and dirty on nearly every aspect of production. But I think that's where a lot of its really weird charm tends to come from. And especially in that like that slow wobbling bass, it's definitely one of the stranger treats that this track offers us. And it kind of reminds me of like using a whamola. If anyone knows what that is, if you're a Primus fan, you probably know what a whamola is. Obviously that would have been impossible. That wasn't really in mass production. I think Les Claypool had like one of a couple in the entire world at that point. It's in mass production now, or mass production, like limited quantity production for public as far as I'm concerned. But I digress. I just want to say it sounds like a whamola, and I really like it. I think it sounds fun. But yeah, I was inexplicably drawn to this song in my early 20s, and yet here I am still listening to it today. It's still great. I won't say if it's number 1 on the list or not, but I will say it's still a pretty fun song, and I still very much appreciate it. So glad I got to come back and revisit this one. Speaking of songs I do remember, I don't remember like this being a single, but I remember also hearing this one in my early 20s as well. Song number 8, Beer Can. Long, drawn out, fade out for song number 8, Beer Can. The energy in this one is definitely needed because I think the album up to this point, with a few exceptions, has had an overall slower pace. So this song feels like a breath of fresh air. It's definitely been needed up to this point, and we're past the halfway point, so we need a little more life injected into this album. It's just like a super upbeat feeling song, instrumentally anyway, lyrically maybe to an extent. Because like I know the song's just about saying fuck it, live your life to like whatever way you want to, but I think one line references him catching the bug, aka probably an STD or something like that, or an STI, whatever they're called now. Regardless, that part doesn't sound fun, but I mean, I guess if that's him living his best life, that's what he did, right? He got laid and paid the price. That much. But yeah, like this one's really danceable. Obviously, that's what helps this energy come back and everything like that. Even with some of the interesting layers throughout the song, there are plenty of that too. The bass and drums are, again, probably the bigger highlights of the entire thing. So it's just something to really have fun and catch on to. I like the bendiness of the bass, and just the drums are just marching right on through. I shouldn't say marching. That's probably like not the wrong word. They're driving right on through. Things are good. Things are fun. I love the pacing of the song. It's fantastic. I didn't care too much for the extended organ outro there, and just with Beck doing like all the funny voice shit and everything like that. I mean, like, I'm not a bum on fun here. Like, I get it. It's just funny. It's just good stuff. But I don't know. It's not necessarily that it sounds bad or anything, but it just didn't need to stretch. It really didn't need to stretch to 4 minutes. With that said, let's move on to song number 9, Steal My Body Home.
The trees are fake, but you know you can't allow it.
Another very long fade out to song number 9, Steal My Body Home. I can't remember what episode it was recently where just the fade outs never stopped. It was just long fade. Oh, it was the Ozzy album. Yes, Diary of a Madman, where it's like the fade outs just were forever and ever and ever. This one has those elements too, but I won't complain as much about it. So with this one, like I mentioned earlier in this review too, of certain things sounding like near psychedelic. Well, this one's like definitely face down in that style. I mean, the pacing has just grinded to an absolute halt. This is far more drenched in atmosphere than like most other tracks on this album combined. But and like it's fine in that sense. I like that it's kind of like more enveloping that way. But my biggest issue is that it just goes on too damn long. This song, how long is it? 5 minutes and 33 seconds. This song did not require that at all. And it ends up sounding like a big hippie jam towards the end, so it does give you something a little more as you go on, but just, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not high enough to appreciate this whole thing. Like, I like how some of the slower jam parts happen, or just like, you know, the slower, quieter parts. Then the jam at the end gets a little fun, but just, it takes too long for one thing to meet the other. I will say that much. It didn't need to be 5.5 minutes. Decent enough track, way too damn long. There you go. Short, sweet review right there. Moving on to song number 10, Nightmare Hippie Girl.
She took me off my gun with this down in my face. She's so spaced out. Level. And she's meditating with it.
Alrighty then. Song number 10, Nightmare Hippie Girl. I mean, speaking of hippies, from the last song I was just talking about, like with hippie jams, I didn't initially make that previous hippie bit in spite of this one. I hadn't even thought about it, but now obviously it's just extremely fitting. More folkiness in this one. I think more of an alternative edge into this one altogether. But I mean, don't look too deep into that particular part. This feels like more of an idea of a song than a fully fleshed out one, because once you get to the halfway point, it's just melodic repetition for like over a minute, and it gets a little tiresome before too long. And like, I know I've had songs like this appear on the show before, but at least when there's like just a lot of repetition going on like the last half or quarter of a track, there's usually something about it that's like a little more appealing, but like nothing really changes at all for this minute and a half. It's just the same loop like over and over again, just with different lyrics. So I don't know. Again, it doesn't necessarily sound bad, but just could have did something a little more. Like, I don't know, throw like an organ in there towards the end of it or something like that. Something, anything at all, but just, it just kept going and going and going. And this one was 2 minutes and 55 seconds. It kind of felt longer than that. That's the craziest part. Well, if you're a Beck fan, you're probably yelling this next one right in my face, which, I mean, it happens. I'm sorry that I'm not as big a fan as you are, but regardless, we can check out song number 11, Motherfucker. Noisy, and that is song number 11, Motherfucker. I mean, that could be your reaction just after listening to the song, like, wow, motherfucker, the fuck was that? I think I've sworn more in this episode than I have in quite a while, but I mean, there's literally 2 songs with F-bombs in it. What can I say? Anyways, this is just like another like grimy mess of a song, but again, I do like that for some reason. It's appealing to me. What can I say? It feels like his take on like a low quality metal track or something like that. It's like recording a metal track like on a 4-track recorder. So there you go. Like that's kind of what it feels like it is. And I'm here for it. I dig it. I mean, I'm glad it's not an entire album of this. So I dig the fact that it's just like a track to experiment with. It's short. It's punchy. There's still not a whole lot to take away from this one other than the fact that it's like really noisy and really grimy. It's a simple, aggressive little track. I dig it though. Yeah, this one is what, like 2 minutes and 5 seconds. It's the shortest one on the album, so I can appreciate that. I think it's cool. Nice little experiment they got going on here. Anyways, time to wrap up this album with the final song, song number 12, Black Hole. And that's how you close out the album with song number 12, Black Hole. I mean, ultimately, this one is probably the prettier track on this album. There's an album full of ugliness here, and I don't necessarily mean that in the bad way. I mean, I've talked really nicely about some of the grimier tracks on this album, but regardless, the prettiest track on the album for sure. It's more or less pretty simplistic all the way through, just running on one chord for the vast majority of the time. It's pretty minimal as a whole, even though like it feels a little denser with the layers, but it works. It's in balancing both those things, feeling minimal, but yet somehow feeling dense. Like it's nice like that. It does start to feel repetitive before too long, but because of how like nice everything is, it's kind of like meditative to a point. So there's more to appreciate about it. And so like the 5 minutes and 17 seconds the song is, didn't even feel that bad to get through. Like, even when you start to notice the repetition, it's just still kind of peaceful, so you're just kind of, like, chilling with it for a bit. It's nice. It's a decent end to the album, too, considering, like, the whole project is, like, fairly low-key. I don't want to necessarily say low energy, but it's definitely not, like, high energy or anything like that. It's pretty, like, low-level type stuff. So it makes sense to end the album on this, like, slow and quiet piece. And just the prettiest track, too. And then, like, obviously going on forward to the discography, things got, like, a little more, little less grimy, I should say. I don't know. I'm not infinitely familiar with Beck's discography, but I know like this one was like a particularly noisy album. I could tell I got through it. Anyways, with that said, I can take off my headphones because I am indeed through it. That was Beck's Mellow Gold that we just listened to. So now the one thing I have to do is take Spotify off the screen. It is just me now, and I'm going to be joined by the numbers. Yeah, whatever I choose to do, because it's time to rank the songs 12 through 1. We got to do this. Worst to best, not so great to great, least favorite to favorite, least preferred to preferred. However you want to cut the cake, it's 12 slices that we're going to need. So good, a good even number. You don't get to work with fractions or anything like that. Anyways, I digress into absolutely nothing. I think I should go ahead and just like tell you what my song rankings are. So let's do this now. You'll notice the edit on screen. There's like a little fade there because I messed everything up. I have to reread my rankings now. Let's just get through this, shall we? Here we go. 12, Truck Driving Neighbor Downstairs. 11, Pay No Mind. 10, Whiskey Clone Hotel City 1997. 9, Steal My Body Home. 8, Nightmare Hippie Girl. 7, Motherfucker. 6, Fucking With My Head. 5, Black Hole. 4, Beer Can. 3, Soul Suckin' Jerk. 2, Sweet Sunshine, which means Loser is actually our number one track. As much as I praise Sweet Sunshine, I mean, like, Loser's the top single for a reason. Just a silly, fun, catchy song, but Sweet Sunshine, outside of singles, is definitely one of the standouts on the album for me of just being so strange, weird, and just almost menacing sounding in a way, you know? I like that. Anyways, thank you very much, Numbers. Sorry for the mistake I had back there of screwing everything up. Glad you stood with me for a minute there. But now, we actually have to move on to this thing here. The other words on the screen. It's time to rate the record. That's right. How did I think about it? I told you my thoughts on it, but now I need to put that into a letter and a score. I think you want to know, so I guess I won't waste any more time. I'll just tell you after I hiccup, that is. Anyways, as I said, it's been quite a while. It's like roughly 15 years-ish since I last listened to this album front to back. I enjoyed it a lot in my early 20s. As I've grown up, though, it doesn't have the same sticking or staying power that I was hoping. I thought this might have ended up in mid to high B tier, but this actually, for the first time since the Sloan album that I did earlier this season, has fallen to the C tier. This album is C tier 67.08%. There's something about that that's exciting to me, though. This season has been mostly full of A and B tier albums, so to have something outside of that now feels pretty exciting, even though it's unfortunate. I don't necessarily want to trash Beck because I do like a lot of his future work as well. But I don't know. This one just doesn't have the same staying power, and it's unfortunate, you know? And I have a feeling this is going to piss some people off. I'm used to that. I mean, whatever. But the best part is you can let me know your opinions down below. What do you think about this album? How would you rank the songs? How would you rate the record? Why do you love this album so much if you do? Again, let me know down in the comments below. I am super curious. You've heard my opinion. I want to hear yours. That's the best way to do it. You can also go over to ratetherecord.ca and find all the other places to tell me as well. That's ratetherecord.ca. Once again, the social media links are there so you can find other ways to get in touch with me. The streaming links, the RTR Club, and merch can all be found over at ratetherecord.ca. Wow, I know how to say my own website. That's the thing, as I get towards the end of these episodes, I kind of like lose the ability to speak. So it's a good thing that I'm done now. So one more time, I'll say thank you very much for joining me today, hanging out, and listening to this album with me. Hope you enjoyed it. So next week is going to be the season finale of season 6. What could I have possibly chosen? I will give you a couple hints here. First off, it's an album that I really like. That could literally be anything. I wanted to end the season off on something like a personal high note just to kind of send everything out. And I will say, one of the songs on this album, if you go back to like my top 5 NMR tracks of the year type deal, I can't remember what year, one of them was my number 1 song. I will say that much. So if you go digging deep enough, you'll find the answer pretty quickly. Anyways, I'll leave it there. There's your hint. Finale next week. Make sure you're joining me. Thank you very much once again for being here with me. I'll see you then. So until I see you then, go listen to even more awesome music. Take care, friends.